Okay, so you're a D family and you decided then to pursue a career in acting, which normally turns out really lucrative for most people. I mean,
Why?
not everybody, that is for sure. So how did you start to develop that love of acting? I heard it was later in life, not till you got to college.
Yeah, well, I had all kinds of, I started working, I've never stopped working since I was 16, although I worked even when I was younger than that in the orchards to make my own money. My dad said, if you want something, you just got to go do it. So I'd back up the newspaper boy when he didn't want to do it, and I'd take his money and sold Christmas cards, and that's how I would do it. My grandma always got me started each year with 20 bucks. So that's how it went. But you know, I framed houses. I worked commercial fishing boats for salmon. That's how I made my money. I framed houses. I wasn't very good at any of them, but I could outwork anybody. My dad made sure of that. And so I really came to things late. So if you're thinking, you know, it's like you should reserve the moment to actually change your life anytime you want. But I found myself in college, and I didn't have that kind of wild streak, that rebel thing. I went to 4 different high schools. My brother went to Vietnam. My dad worried about it every day. And I had that rebellious streak, but I decided that I wouldn't show it because he was always stressed out enough. But really what I found that coming from a blue collar, my dad was a fist fighter. So it was a kind of it was tough. And to actually say that I wrote poetry or I thought about telling stories, that was code for you're lazy. And so when I finally came to it, I was in college. I realized that I had been living a lot for them, to not bother them, to not stress them out. And I thought, man, you're going to wake up and you're going to wonder one day that you could have done these things that you thought you could have done, and you're going to be where I am right now, and you're going to go, I could have done that. And it was a breakthrough for me. Sometimes people want to talk about, well, what was your big break, right? And every one of you have it in your own mind. A friend told you about the job you have now or told you about something that happens. And sometimes when people look at my career, they look at these kind of the iceberg, the tip. Well, of course, that's a high mark for you, right? But the high mark for me was when I listened to my own heart. The ticking of my heart that said, man, you got to get with it. You're a storyteller. Now what do I do? Because I didn't know anybody in the business either. So I had to, but I knew how to work, and I was kind of clumsy at it. I went to my first interview, and in Hollywood, you're supposed to be in Levi's with holes and long hair back in the 70s, and you know, and I wore a suit to my first thing. I was a square. But I decided I would still beat this. I would figure this game out. And that's what I did. And there's no guarantee when you decide you want to do something you love. It doesn't translate in America to money. In fact, you can get paid a lot of money in America doing things you hate. But I wanted to do this, so there was no guarantee. I prayed about it. I did all the things I did. I said, wait, is it my turn? Is it? Keep working. Keep working. So I said, okay, Jesus, don't use my name so much. Okay. So I went about 7 years before I got my first check. And it was in a film called Big Chill. And that was my...
Yeah, I
Thank
love
you.
this story because most people think, you know, when they get cut from a movie, ultimately that's not a good thing. But I love that you actually look at that as sort of a crowning moment in your career.
Again, that's not the iceberg thing that everybody sees,
Right.
to be in a hit movie. I just knew I was on the right path. So, you know, I don't mean to bore you with my life, but that's how I measure it. I measure it differently than magazines do, or I measure it differently than even people do how a movie does at opening weekend. I measure my life in a different way. I don't let the things that I don't let it define me.